Rex McNeill.
Alex Cosper, buddy, how are you doing?
Yeah, great to see you, my old quad friend.
Yeah, a long time ago in a land far away. Huh?
That was that 86 or 87 when we worked together at Quad?
I want to say 87, 88, something like that.
That sounds right, because we, that's when Quad was top 40 and Jeff Hunter was the PD.
Right, yeah.
And those were fun times.
They were fun times. I had met Jeff Hunter years before and kind of became friends with him, and he knew I was a guy that was kind of interested in radio, and kept in touch with him, and he really kind of gave me my first big break there at Quad, and learned so much from you and Jeff Hunter and the whole gang,
Yeah, I mean, those were the days when you could get away with saying kind of whatever you wanted on the radio. And,
right.
The playlists were controlled. I mean, I was the music director, or I was the assistant music director. I didn't really have the title till '88. But I had done all that work since '84,
right?
When I started out of Sac State there. But I remember when you were there, and you were doing weekends or something?
Yeah, I was doing like weekend overnights. I think I started out what we call board hopping, running the countdown programs on the weekends. Yeah. Jeff told me, hey, do this for a while, and I'll get you on the air. And I think the first thing I did on the air was like a live tag for a commercial.
Yeah.
Now open 24 hours a day, stuff like that.
And then you went on to San Francisco radio. That was pretty amazing, because you were at some big stations there.
Got really lucky.
You were at X100 and KFRC?
Yeah, X100. I remember after Quad, I went to Cahill, which was up in Auburn, an oldies station at the time.
Cool 101 eventually.
Right.
And then V101 now.
Yeah, exactly. And, so I went there for I think like 6 months, and I get a phone call from Ellen Kay.
I remember Ellen.
Yeah, who's Ellen?
She was at K108, right?
I believe she was at K108, yeah.
Brown Broadcast.
Yeah, worked in San Diego. More famously known now for being Rick Dees' sidekick and Ryan Seacrest's sidekick in LA at KISS. Called me one day, and it was a Friday, and she goes, "Hi, this is Ellen Thomas from X100. And one of the guys we worked with at Quad, Bill Shakespeare, we used to always joke about working at X100.
Yeah, I used to joke about his name. Bill Shakespeare. Yeah. I love your plays.
Yeah. Read some fabulous plays. So anyway, she calls me 3 times that day, because I thought it was a joke. I thought it was some radio buddy trying to say, hey, I got a job. And she goes, we got your air check. We dug through a box and found your air check from Quad. And I said, oh, okay, well, yeah. And she goes, we would love to interview you for this job at X100. And at that time, X100 had George McFly, who was just a great jock, dancing Mark Hansen, Chuck Geiger, Ellen Thomas, Ellen Kay. And I was like 22, and maybe I'd spent like 3 years part-time radio, not anything full-time or anything like that. And so I went down and interviewed with Bill Richards, who later became the program director for KISS FM in LA.
Right.
And met with him. I said, oh, how did you get started on radio? Oh, I was young like you. So I thought maybe I was on good, maybe good standing there. And I called him a couple weeks later, and he goes, oh yeah, I hired you and like 4 other guys. And so it was like December '89, 3 months after the big San Francisco earthquake, right around Christmas, that I drive a stick shift truck and learn how to drive a stick shift to do my first shift on the air in San Francisco. And I looked at the lights. I grew up in Chico, California, which is a small college town, as everybody knows around this area, and looked at the lights, and I was just so scared. And I was like, oh my gosh, am I going to be able to do this? And it took me like 6 months to kind of feel comfortable on the air in San Francisco, because I kept thinking it's just this big city. But once I realized it was everybody wanted to kind of have that big, small town feeling in a big city, it seemed to click, and I had a great time at X100 with a lot of great talent.
That was like '89 and '91?
Yeah, and then interviewed as that station sold to another owner. They were going to make it KFRC FM, interviewed with them, and I was like one of 5 people they decided to keep. And I think maybe I was the first live jock on KFRC FM at 99.7.
That's legendary, Rex.
I got lucky. I got lucky, and I worked for Kevin Matheny, and who is in the Private Parts movie, Howard Stern.
I didn't know that.
Yeah,
okay.
Yeah. At least his part is played as the program director of WNBC, and it was fun to be able to say KFRC for a while. You know?
Sure.
So,
and how long were you at KFRC?
about a year. I think it was about a year. It was, and I did.
They kept flipping to all these other different things, right? I mean, it's gone through several incarnations.
Yeah, it went through several different incarnations. I think for about a decade it was pretty solid, just being oldies there at 99.7, and then different things.
Now, when you were on Cool, what years were you on Cool 101 or Cahill 101?
Yeah, that's an interesting thing. After I left Quad, I was at Cahill. Then I went to San Francisco, and then when San Francisco kind of ended, I came back to Cahill. I was back there, back and forth over kind of a decade, probably 8 or 9 times.
Your home base.
Yeah, it was really, worked for Mark Lennart's a great guy.
Great guy who I've corresponded with in my radio research project.
Oh, cool. Yeah, I just got a message on Facebook from him the other day. Rick Santos, who is now on some network doing a morning show. And it's real quality people. It was a fun place to work, and such a heritage station. So it was really fun to kind of get my foot into the oldies format in that station.
So did that turn you into an oldies wizard, where you know all the hits of all time?
I kind of knew the oldies a little bit because I grew up as an Elvis Presley fan, Roy Orbison, the Beach Boys, the Beatles. I kind of knew that stuff. But the thing I found amazing is you could kind of know the music, but then when you start playing it on the air, there's figuring out, how long that intro is, how you
7
get
seconds.
Yeah, another 7 seconds. Yeah. And so there was a learning curve, once I kind of got there.
Did you have freedom there to say whatever you wanted?
I had a lot of freedom. I think I was rocking Rex McNeill there the first time.
I remember that.
And kind of ripped off the real Don Steele. I heard him, and I said, yeah, maybe I can kind of, add my own little flavor to this and kind of do it. And so, I just kind of had fun with it. Did a lot of phoners, I think that I've pretty much done everywhere, and tried to always be a highly interactive show. And just have fun. To me, if you can have fun and, people enjoy what you do, it's a fun gig.
So basically, in what shift did you do?
I was on a weekend swing there. I think at like one point I was doing like a Friday night at midnight, Saturday night at midnight, and then coming back like Sunday night.
Oh, that's why you called yourself Rockin' Rex McNeill, because you did a party show, right?
I don't think at that time I did. I think I was just doing these, weekend. I was on the air a lot.
I had thought you had done some like 7 to midnight type party show.
I don't think so at that time.
Yes, I'm mixed up.
But I think you may be
memories blurred.
Well, I think you're thinking of Cool 101.1 years later.
Oh, okay.
And as T-Rex, I did Jukebox Saturday night.
Oh, that's what it was.
Yeah,
okay.
And so eventually...
I'm mixing up the decades.
Yeah, eventually we get there. But, and Jukebox Saturday night was such a blast and a fun thing to do. Really enjoyed doing that show. Did it for around 2 years. We were able to take over from a radio legend in Sacramento, Dusty Morgan, who decided he didn't want to do Saturday nights.
He had done K108 mornings.
Yeah,
forever.
I think it's him and Joey Mitchell, right?
And also about Dusty, I'd love to catch up with him sometime, because he made all these commercials,
right?
Like the lumberjack commercial.
Yeah.
To me, that was pretty monumental that a local guy was doing local jingles.
Right.
Because I didn't know anyone else doing that. It seemed like jingles came from other cities.
Right. Yeah. Dusty Morgan, I worked with him at a couple different places, and I always thought that he was a phenomenal talent. And everybody in town seemed to know who Dusty Morgan was. He had that Saturday night show he did on K108 for eons. And that was. He was so famous for that, so famous for K108 was just a juggernaut at that point.
It was for the people who grew up in the 70s with rock and roll but didn't want to rock too hard.
Exactly. And it was, I remember the first time I worked, actually how I got to San Francisco, kind of a strange story, is Brian Casey was the program director at K108. And out of the blue, I get a call from Brian Casey that he wants to meet me, he wants to get together for lunch. And I think I'd send an air check over there. And we had lunch, and they said, well, hey, why don't you have me work for you? Well, you don't want to work for me. I'm not a very nice guy. I said, well, I'll take your word for it, I guess. And he goes, you have a San Francisco sound.
Huh.
And I said, okay.
What did he mean by that?
I don't know what he meant by that. And I said, okay. He goes, have you ever tried working in San Francisco? I said, no, I've only been in this business a real short period of time. I'm not good enough to work in San Francisco. And so about 6 months later is when I get that call from LNK about X100. She goes, do you know anybody at K108? And I didn't really know anybody at K108. I had lunch with the PD that one time or whatever. And so I think that he wanted me off Cahill for whatever reason, and I got the San Francisco gig. So program director.
He was programming both stations, or what?
No, he was programming K108.
Okay.
And Cahill was going against K108.
Oh, okay.
And
I see. So he was trying to move you out of the market?
I guess so.
Okay.
I guess so. So if there's any program...
That was a prank that a lot of PDs used to pull back then. I don't know if they still do.
So if there's any program directors out there who would like me out of the market, you can call them. But so that was an interesting kind of a sidebar to San Francisco and kind of how that happened.
Out of all, have we covered all your background so far, or were there other things that we need to talk about? Because I want to get to the internet station here.
We could go on probably forever, because it seems like...
lots of great stories.
Yeah, I think everybody who's worked in, just like you, who's worked in the business for a considerable amount of time. I look so young, but I've been doing this for a while. There's, I think mostly Sacramento is kind of my history.
So what was your, what do you consider your funnest moments in radio?
I thought about this before, and I've kind of ranked like the top 3 stations kind of in my career. I think Quad 106 fits somewhere in there. It was early on. It was very exciting to work with some great talent that I really respected. You, Jeff Hunter, Panama Jack, I think I remember being there.
Fun guy.
Pat Garrett, who was doing afternoons up in Seattle.
Really? I wondered what happened to him. To the Nighthawk.
Yeah, now he's the Outlaw.
Is he?
He's
what station?
KMPS, I believe.
Okay.
And I've talked to him a little bit.
It's a legendary station.
Yeah, he's doing great. And so working with those people and around those people, I think I learned a little bit. And then we got some lucky opportunities. X100, I think, is probably my top station. And then Cool 101.1 comes in there, somewhere in the top 3. That was a great station working under John Brent. Johnny Reed, the program director there.
And we're talking about the 20th century, back when radio was fun. Okay,
That's
now
right.
we're going to talk about the 21st century, a whole different world. Okay?
Right.
Where internet radio is starting to really evolve into this mainstream thing, or it's on the cutting edge of becoming bigger. You're at an internet station now, onemusicnetwork.com.
Right.
That's where we are right now in the conference room.
They let us in again? Oh.
And so this is a station that has multiple streams, based here in Sacramento. Tell us about the stations you're doing.
I'm on the classic 80s format as the DJ. You'll hear my voice in other parts of the programming. And Don had the music going for that station. And then Don brought me in to give it some personality, give it, kind of a little twist.
So it's more than a jukebox like what radio has become.
Right. Yeah. It's, you've got like a Pandora that's just a music stream. Hey, I'm going to pick my favorite songs. We're similar to, we like to think like if you plug in your favorite radio station, you're going to hear a personality. And so we're kind of the full online music experience in the sense of you're going to hear a DJ, and most of the DJs here have some background in Northern California radio. And so we do a show,
So in other words, internet radio has disc jockeys, but terrestrial radio has desk jockeys.
Yeah,
so it's a whole different world.